fellow chaser, and good morning. If it is morning for you, it is for me. Very, very early morning, but I guess it doesn't matter when you're watching this. In fact, this could actually just be like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, or it could be like months ago. Except it clearly isn't that because I was a lot chubbier months ago. Or it could be from the future. Okay, enough. Sorry. A little bit tired and very stupid jokes. But the reason I just got up and decided to do this video because I was reminded of something that I am reminded a lot of times when I wake up in the morning, and it it occurs every once in a while. A lot of times this will happen through many other times during the day, but just a sort of a reflection of things I used to do when I was drinking. And so here's the scene. I would wake up very early in the morning. See, the thing is at least for me, when I was drinking, I wouldn't like sleep till noon. No, I would go to bed maybe at midnight and 1, and then wake up at like 4:30 in the morning. I wasn't getting much, what's the word, sleep. And the sleep I was getting was dog shit, because if you're passed out rather than falling to sleep, you don't hit any REM, you barely dream, like all that good stuff. But anyways, I would wake up very early in the morning, and I remember I would go outside on the back porch just when the sun was going to be cresting to begin the day, and I would sit out back with, I at this particular time, I remember I could see actually kind of this forested area through my like back porch of the apartment, and I would have a cigarette and my drink, my little water bottle full of discount vodka, and my chaser, and I would sit there and I would just enjoy. I would enjoy that moment. I mean, I'd still be all hungover and feeling like garbage, but once the liquid started entering me, I'd start to feel better and just all that good stuff. And it was like such a great way to start in the morning, I suppose. And the funny thing too, I laugh at the juxtaposition between like, yes, I'm appreciating the day becoming anew and looking at the forest and nature, and meanwhile I'm like smoking heaters and chugging like vodka. It's not exactly Henry David Thoreau over here, but that's what I like. That's how I begin my day. And even years after that, there was a lot of times when I was living with my significant other, I once again, unplanned, unintentional, would wake up at around 4:30 in the morning, and I would sneak into the living room, and I would have the TV on mute. I would turn that on, and I'd have my little drink and my little chaser, and I would just like be on my phone, listen to music quietly as not to wake up the person that is living with me, so they don't know I'm drinking alcoholically in the morning. And I would enjoy that time because that it was this time where no one else was awake in my life, and I still had hours before work, and I was like, yes, this is just my time. This is like, no one can bug me. I mean, God forbid someone calls me, because it would be like an emergency. But like, the world was still asleep, and this was my time to like not have to. I guess I was still sneaking drinking, but not have to sneak drinking at work, or like to get off after work and the hustle and bustle of the day. I could just like sit and peacefully be an alcoholic, I guess. And as awful as the drinking days were, which they were, I remember the brain just kind of like gravitates towards these more pleasant memories. There's this thing where your brain has this filtration system where it like really, when you want to drink or you want to use drugs, it really starts like weeding out and I mean all of the bad stuff. And this particular, what I wanted to talk about today is the idea of rituals, rituals within your drinking or your use. Because I mean, that's the same thing I felt this morning. Even, even if it had been quite a while since I'd been actively doing that, morning after morning. I mean, it's been a long time from that. Not that I've been sober the whole time, but I would, over these years, I would be mostly sober with just some, weekend or relapses in between. But years ago, there was even a time where I was just like, for months, for years, like daily drinking every day. And I remember rituals like that. I remember like the ritual of when I was at work and I would go out to my car, go somewhere for lunch, and I could just sit, recline, have the phone, playing something. I wouldn't even pay attention. I could just sit and drink. And a lot of people have these things that, I mean, if something like alcohol and drugs is so pervasive in your life, there's just going to be these like set up practices, if you want to call them, just these things through your life that it's incorporates the use and the drinking, but it's more deeply ingrained in that. Like I remember when I was smoking cigarettes, one of the hardest things to quit about it wasn't just like the lack of nicotine or just this like smoking. It was how it was like so in my mind ingrained in these things I did, these things that felt relieving. So like one of the biggest adjustments was just taking like 15-minute work breaks and not smoking. It's like the 15-minute work break was so attuned to that. It was just like, talk to some people, check the phone, get out and have, at least one cigarette, sometimes try to sneak two, but it was just that moment like, yes, this is like cigarette and relaxation time. And, there's these it kind of goes the same way where it's not just the addiction to whatever the substance is, it's also the addiction to the things that were around it. A lot of people I talk to, with things like weed, they talk about like the grinding of the weed, the filling of the bowl, the place you would sit, the I don't know, whatever your setup was. Same thing with people I know that shot up, just even they would have, some people had described to me that like the one of the best parts wasn't even just the high, it was the right before the high. It was constructing everything, melting it down, getting out the rig and getting everything ready right before it, because you like had the anticipation of it was coming. But you'd have like, if you're gonna like try to live while in active use or alcoholism, it these things just become incorporated in your life that you do. And just like a lot of things in your life, they not only become habits, but they become these, whether you know it consciously or not, these like sacred, almost like sacred rituals in your mind of like, these are the things that my brain is now expecting me to do. And not only that, but like, it may seem like too strong of a word, but like you fall in love with these little things. The same thing goes with any like sort of the drug. I don't know, meth users where they would they would have their setup, whether it was on breaks at work or right before work or at night, or just these little things that they did right when they got high, or these things that, I would do, even things like such as when I got to a certain amount of drunk, I had to eat, and even like preparing the food. I mean, just all this stuff that kind of wasn't the exact substance itself, but everything that was done that revolved around it in the same way. And it's hard enough just to get your body to try to fight off the urge and the crave just to, get the drunk or get the high or whatever it is. It's a whole nother battle to fight off the the schedule of these rituals or the schedule of these things that you would do that like you would look forward to, because in all honesty, when it came to drinking and drugs, that in doing them, even if they weren't fun anymore, there would still be a sense of relief that came from them. Like the way that I usually like to describe the a certain point when I got to when I was just like trying to, like when I was just drinking to be like normal, so to speak, I I would get my enjoyment from like a reduction of suffering. So like what I talked about, what I was doing in the morning there, like when I was super like hungover and everything like that, and I'd start drinking, I would feel relief because I felt like crap. Like I wasn't at normal here, I was like low here, but I would get relief from drinking, getting away some of the hangover effects, and then just getting to normal. That elevation, like, at least felt good. I mean, if you think about it, it's a very depressing way to live. It stems from this quote of like happiness as a reduction of suffering, and that's really what it was like. And but even that in my mind, I wouldn't. There's times I go through where I don't think about like the smell, especially what I drink. Ugh. But I wouldn't think about the smell or the imagery or anything like that, like just strictly for the substance. I would think about the things that I did around them. I even, things like there was a time where there was like this liquor store near the apartment I went to, and I would go there, and It's kind of a very weird relationship. I would talk to the same guy who had owned it, and we would just chat as I'd buy the poison that I was slowly killing myself with. We didn't talk about the elephant in that room, but I would talk with him, just like the ding dong thing he had when I'd walk in there. Just even the route I take after work, arriving there, being like, hey, what's up, JD, and just talking about it. Kind of have the booze on the counter, but just kind of sitting with him and chatting with him, just like all these things that come like that. Like I know, especially like a lot of like tweakers that had like certain games that they like, little phone games that they would get high, and then they would just like open up the app, and then it was like, yes, game time. Like all these kind of things that you think about, like the subtraction of the substance from your life. But you know there's another thing of like all these activities, or again the idea of the practice, the ritual of it that you do surrounding it. And so you're it's almost like the way I thought of it is it's kind of like a phantom phone syndrome. Like when people don't have their phone, they'll like still instinctively like reach for their pocket or their purse or something like that, because they're just so used to patting it down and like pulling out the phone. And I felt like my brain was doing that for so many things, where it's just like, all right, it's on break at work. You got to reach for things. I like there was times I would almost like I was like under a tractor beam. I would just go out to my car and I would just look in my glove compartment. And this is when I was like trying to not drink. I would just pull up with the glove compartment where I usually kept the booze, and nothing was there. Just the owner's manual and whatever trash I had in there. I'd be like, huh. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm not doing that right now. And then the big question came in: what am I going to do right now? And that's one thing that I've really had to try to adopt all throughout my life when I've attempted, recovery, is like, what am I going to replace this thing with? And some people, like for instance, one thing that I tried for some time is just like, right, if I get up in the morning, just go for a walk. You can't be like sedentary. You can't be sitting or doing something, because just that being up in the morning and then just sitting and just opening your phone, even something as simple as doing that, like I would immediately think about like, all right, I normally like drink with this. So I had to do something like completely different that was not in that same atmosphere. I mean, a lot of people talk about like setting an environment where if you even went to like treatment, or you've just been trying to get sober, and you're like, even after meetings, like you go back to the same apartment and you have the same even sort of setup, and you like sit on the recliner, sit on the couch, turn on the TV, and you're just like, where is the bottle, or where is the pipe? Like where are these things? Because you're kind of like doing the walkthrough of everything you would right up to the point of using or drinking. And so like some people try to even rearrange their setup. They maybe we'll put the TV over here, we'll put like the couch, or whatever. Well, I'll even take this poster down, maybe put up like live laugh love poster, or I don't know. Sorry if you like that stuff, but trying to like just change the whole surrounding. But even in doing that, it was just the act of I'm getting off work and I'm walking into the house and do and shit. I My brain is telling me I'm supposed to do something right now, and I know what it is, and I can't do it. And that's a lot of times where I sort of have cravings or urges or like fantasies, and a lot of times there's this well of stuff that I thought was forgotten. It's funny how much you drink, you forget so much stuff, except that you remember like bad things. And I don't just mean bad memories, but you remember like these sort of like these rituals that are just so deeply in your mind, and it doesn't go away. So even if I've been sober for quite some time, if I just kind of did the same sort of like progression of things that usually would lead to drinking, it would just pop back into my head of this is what I'm supposed to do. So it became like very difficult. I mean, I know some people that even took measures, which I will say seem kind of drastic, but not foolish by any means. But they would actually take different routes on their way back home. A lot of times people did this because it would be a way to avoid the bar or the grocery store, or the gas station, or the trap house, or wherever they were going, to avoid where they'd normally stop off on their way to or from work. And some people did it though, just because the drive reminded them of something. Like just you do this. That was the word I was looking for. The repetitive, trying to look for the repetition, the repetitive behavior of just over and over and over, and especially if you have the connotation that those things were enjoyable or they brought relief, you just kind of do them over and over and over again, and you, I mean, it might not be too strong of a word, but your mind kind of falls in love with it. And that is when you start to have like what I know when I've had like cravings or urges, I start to go back to those things. It's kind of like mining the old ways, and it just goes back to like let's go through that cycle again. Let's do those things again. Like, come on, man. What are you gonna do after work? You're gonna walk, or you're gonna write, or you're gonna just try to watch this TV show you probably don't care about, or like, go back to the thing that we were doing, man. Remember how good it was? It was not good, but your brain tries to tell you it is, and it's like, let's go back to those things. And such a struggle and such an adjustment that needs to happen is not just like not doing the rituals of it, but like having to replace it with like something else. Truly having to be like, okay, I need to do something very different at this time. It's the time of day plays a big factor of it too. Like, again, what you're like, the cycle of your body gets used to. Like, I need to do something completely different to just wash away any sort of semblance of what I did before. And that may seem like, oh, that's logical, but that can be incredibly difficult for people, because sometimes that just doesn't, it's not really feasible. Like, a great example is what I would do at like breaks at work. It's like, well, I don't really have the time or resources, or these, like, I don't have the opportunity to just completely go and do something different. Like, I'm kind of here in this vicinity, or especially, working from home. I get off and I only have 15 minutes. I can't go like fishing, or I can't go, I mean, what am I gonna do? I'm still in this same place. Like, I used to have this joke. I thought it was kind of funny, kind of sad too, where I would tell people that, like, a big trigger for me is my my workplace. They'd be like, oh yeah, really? What do you do? I'm like, no, I work from home. And it there was truth to it, because it was like, okay, I push myself away from the computer, and it's like, what do I do? And sometimes I would actually just have to just go outside and just sit somewhere different, or just go to like there was a Wendy's, like the fast food place, where I wouldn't get a burger or anything. I would just get like a pop, or like even like a shake or something, and just to like have something different that I could do during that time, because it was, again, I can't say this word enough. It was just ingrained in my mind that it's like, no, there's a thing that we do here. We got to keep doing the thing. And, rituals can go even, they can go farther, as like, I would still feel it on like weekend nights. Now, regardless if I was like, my mind was used to like drinking daily every day, there's still something about like weekends that really called for drinking. And so it's like, wow, now I don't feel like I have to do something in this like very acute moment. I feel like I have to do something different for this entire night. I don't really have the money or the time, or again, the opportunity to just completely do something different. I mean, like, one thing that was a big mistake for me is that, like, all right, well, if I got to do something different, I got to do something that's fun, which is nice, but usually fun costs a lot. Fun is hard to keep up with, because it's hard to find some things that are exciting and entertaining all the time. Like, just replacing it with something fun is not always an option. So what I tried to do is that I joked about it earlier, but I was like, all right, maybe I'll replace this with the time for writing. It's always so hard for me to start writing, because I just don't feel like doing it a lot of times. So it's like, well, this is a time it's set, and I got to sit down and do this, or I got to do meditation, or a big thing. I mean, you hear it a lot, is exercise. As much as like, I'm not like, exercise is good for me. I don't like super enjoy it, but it's good as just a replacement for what I was doing before, just to start not even just like a new habit, but to start a new ritual. Like that if there's anything I can encapsulate, which is like so important of combating these memories and these feelings and these urges to like go back and to do these things you did before, is not just not doing them, but replacing them, just switching them out with something else. And it is difficult at times, because I've learned that I can't just like switch it out with something that's just something else. It has to feel like it's either interesting or fun, important, like in meaningful or whatever it could be, or at least productive. That could be along the lines of like some sort of chore or cleaning or yard work or like something else like that. It's got to be one of those three things. If it's just like, all right, I'll just be on my phone, and it's fine if like what you're doing on your phone now is like super fun and engaging. But if it's just like being on your phone or just scrolling on the internet mindlessly, for me that wouldn't work because it was just like, all right, well, after like two times it's like, okay, we're done doing this, and then the brain is like, I got an idea, and it goes right back to what I was doing before. And again, you talk about what comes to mind as far as when you have cravings, urges, or thoughts or fantasies. There's strong attachments to the senses, especially the imagery of it, and those rituals, those things, just they come back. And so I had to like try to reset my mind. And the craziest thing about like alcoholism and addiction is that even if I spent like a large amount of time like from this, and I was like really replacing it with something else, and then I kind of like fell off, not like drank, but just kind of fell off when I was doing, it's like despite that amount of time I had, it like goes right back to the original idea of like, okay, let's do the thing where we go outside and smoke and then drink. Like it feels like sometimes it's like a default setting where it's just like, all right, if the slate gets wiped clean, we always have this thing that we do. And I know that does get easier over time, and it becomes way less of like a knee jerk reaction to do it or just a reflex to want to do it. But it does take some time, and not just time, but it takes an actual replacement of something to combat that. And again, I can't stress this enough. The idea of replacing it with something else is logical, but like I know that I had to be like really realistic. I was like, okay, I can't just pick something I'm gonna replace it with. I have to pick something, again, being realistic. What am I actually gonna keep up with? What am I gonna really do on work breaks? Not just like for a week. I have to pick something very consciously that I know, like, all right, that seems viable. It seems like this is something I can do now. And I mean, some of this sounds kind of, I don't know, depressing because it's just like, all right, we just gotta, life is coping. Just kind of, it's all about coping skills. It's not about having fun or getting meaning. It's just about coping so we don't fuck up. It, over time, if you pick the right thing to do, especially if it's like related to a passion or it's something you can build upon, like a sort of project, and you can actually see like tangible progress with it, you start to fall in love with that as you did with the thing before. And like that is immensely helpful to your day-to-day life of staying sober. And again, not just staying sober, but bettering your well-being. So I am probably gonna go back to sleep. Nah, actually I probably won't. But I don't know what you guys are doing. I hope you're having the time of your life. If you're still struggling out there, I hope these videos bring you some sort of comfort, or just like relatability can be, make you feel like you're not alone. If you're like in recovery and things are going well, that's awesome. And oh yeah, like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you enjoy these and you think it's a different take, or you just like my style or whatever it may be, just share a link or whatever the cool kids do. Show somebody else and see if they enjoy it. That would be super duper duper appreciated. All right, enough of that nonsense. Other than that, be well.